Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Raid Shadow Legends. And in today's video, I want to talk about the best epic support champions that you can upgrade if you're having difficulties in places like faction crypts, or hell, if you need any additional support characters that maybe that you have that are on my list. We're going to be primarily focusing on epic champions. I want to do a one, maybe two champions per faction. Some of them are better than others as far as factions go, but hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a better idea of some characters that you might have in your roster that you want to upgrade. Now, before we get started with the rest of the video, I do want to remind people that if you use the QR code in the top right hand of the screen, you can get Tholan Falbeard absolutely free on a brand new account. And you can get these three amazing epics: Stag Knight, Rector Drath, and Farrakhan the Fat, some of which we will be talking about in today's video. And also, don't forget that you can get the Void Legendary Hanorach, and all you got to do is use the promo code Desert Queen within the first 48 hours of a brand new account. So I want to get started with, of course, just from top to bottom. So if you are looking for specific factions, that's the order that I am going to be talking about them. So we're going to start with Banner Lords. Again, some of these factions are better than others, and I'm going to start off with, of course, Stag Knight, who is in my promo link. No surprise, surprise. But a lot of the characters that are going to be in this video are going to be characters that do a lot of things, or they're going to do something particularly niche that you might want. Now, Stag Knight does have a lot of the great kind of bread and butter debuffs: decreased defense, decreased attack. This is pretty nice, and also decreased speed. Now, this part is single target. The other two are AoE, but still really, really great. You know, the increase has all three of the major debuffs here with Stag Knight. And if you happen to be punching up content or you can't seem to land your debuffs, then he'll also put an increased accuracy buff on your characters if they get resisted. Now, I do want to give a special mention to Lady Annabelle as well, if you do happen to have her, because she has some really great debuffs as well, including AoE, decreased speed, and Leech. Leech, which of course allows you to heal up by doing damage to those targets. And then she also does an increased speed on your team as well, including a Revive on Death buff to a one target ally, but it does do the speed up to everyone, so that's really nice as well. She also heals by 3% of their max HP, and when other characters die, whether it's allies or enemies, she basically, she heals up dramatically. So something worth mentioning as far as the characters available in Banner Lords. Moving on to High Elves. Now, I got to admit, I hate the High Elf faction as far as what's available for support characters. I really don't think that there is very good ones, particularly in this support. Now, it doesn't have to be. I just want to say that in this video, we may not be talking about just the support role that's tagged here. Some characters that are basically in HP and defense, I would also qualify as support characters as well. So that might happen in this video. Now, I want to say that even though it's not an epic, I want to talk about Apothecary, because I do have Apothecary at level 60. It may not be necessary depending on your roster, but he does have some, well, basic things really important for that roster. We have an increased speed buff for 2 turns, and also on a cooldown of 3 with a turn meter fill. We have some healing. It can be critical as well. It's on a very low cooldown of 2 turns. And he has a 3 hit at random, which I've actually used on Fire Knight as well. So I used a lot of Apothecary in my early days, but as far as actually epic goes, there's not a lot of good ones. And so there's like characters like Battle Sage that have decent buffs and like a 19% all battle speed aura, which is nice. Revive on Death for a single target. There's this though, which is kind of nice. So an attack buff on all allies for 2 turns, removes all debuffs, so it's an AoE cleanse as well. And the increased attack buff is protected, so that's kind of nice. Cannot be removed. So that's okay. And it has an AoE on the A1, which you could put with like a stun set, which could be pretty useful there. But there's just not a lot of great, I would say, strictly support characters in the High Elf faction. Aside from that, you could consider somebody like Skiramis. So I would kind of put sometimes HP characters down in here as well. Has a provoke on all enemies too, so this is kind of neat. And of course, an AoE attack down as well. So it just depends on what you're looking for. There's a stun on his A1 too. So yeah, High Elf faction is kind of weird, because I wouldn't say that there's any particular support characters that really fly above the rest, but that's just my opinion here. Some other just in general good High Elf characters: Tyrell, Royal Guard, I think are the main ones, and of course Neldor Rhineblade, but these are not, again, not support characters, but characters that I just want to kind of throw out there. Some people like Vergus as well, but a lot of the other ones, I don't know. Moving on to Sacred Order, there's some few obvious ones that I just have to talk about, and that's going to be Deacon Armstrong because this is literally probably one of the best epic supports in the game, but definitely of the Sacred Order faction. Not only does he have a 19% speed aura in all battles, but he does have the fill turn meter of all allies by 15%, and then decreasing 15% of theirs, so it's like net 30, right? And then a free turn, which goes into his AoE decreased defense. So this sets wave content up really nicely for your nuker. So really, really nice there. And on relatively low cooldowns of 3 and 3 with the book. So Deacon Armstrong coming in, well, really strong. As far as other characters for this faction, Frostbringer, if you don't have anything else, it's okay because she does have an increased speed buff and an attack buff on the same skill. It is on a cooldown of 4 instead of 3. Some of the better ones are on 3, but I think she's an older character. She also does a AoE 3-hit random decrease defense debuff, so that one's not bad. It's not fully AoE, but there you go. And then, of course, there's a heal reduction here at a 2-hit. She's actually pretty nice for Fire Knight if you really need a budget champion for that. I know Epic's not necessarily budget, but there you go. As far as I can't really recommend too many of the other ones though that are kind of worth putting your resources into. I would say some people have gone for Anchorite though, as far as for Demon Lord, because he actually increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 on a cooldown of 3. Also cleanses one debuff. Does do a full heal and then increase crit rate and crit damage on allies. So if you go in with this and you go into A2 to extend buffs plus buffs from your other characters, perhaps this could be useful in AoE A1 as well. Could be decent on a stun set for faction or wave based content with a little bit of healing. So that's Sacred Order. As far as barbarians go, this may not come to us too surprise. And I know he's not a support, but he's definitely not a DPS. And I want to talk about Farrakhan the Fat. I'm sorry, like he's an amazing, amazing champion because that's why he's on my promo link. He's not a DPS champion, even though he put him in attack. I guess characters like Geomancer in the Dwarves are also considered attack, but I don't really. Anyways, he's like the only epic character that has all allies attack. So this is really, really important. Also, crit rate, crit damage for 3 turns on a cooldown of 4. So yeah, I don't know of any epic champions that actually have a full ally attack skill. Some of the other ones just draw in like 1 or 2 characters. HP burn and poison also has decreased defense as a debuff. So yeah, I know he's an attack champion, but I want to mention him anyways. Of course, we have the 30-day login High Katoon, who is worth mentioning here if you don't have anything else better either. She's a great budget character that everyone's going to get. So all ally speed aura by 19%. Has a decreased turn meter skill here, has a speed up skill and fill turn meter here as well, which is really important in a turn-based game. And she can also apply a decreased speed debuff, but it is on a relatively low chance. Even with the books, it's 40%, which is not amazing, but there is a chance nonetheless. As far as other characters that I would recommend for this role, not specifically that I have leveled up. I'll be honest, there is no real standouts in my opinion outside of those two. Let me know if I miss someone, I'm overlooking something though. So moving on to the second row, we have Ogren Tribes, and this one's a little bit easier because none other than, of course, Ugo usually comes from in my promo link from time to time. Really great champion as far as the support goes, obviously because there's a crap ton of reviews on the character, and that's mostly for the A2. So on a cooldown of 3, does an AoE and lands a decreased defense and block buffs debuff as well. So really, really nice skill. Great as a kind of entry Hydra champion as well. Does some healing, removes heal reduction, and then removes a 1 more random debuff, and then does a healing. And if for whatever reason Ugo's still alive, if the only person alive, she can actually revive everyone. So there you go. Also, a leech debuff on the A1, which isn't too bad. The whole revive thing is based on this, basically. If everyone's alive except for her, Ugo can revive everyone with the Ugo's Brew. So that's Ugo, and then I do want to give a kind of a special mention to Skull Crusher. So I'm trying to avoid void characters where possible, but if the faction is really crap, I might bring it up. So Skull Crusher's A2 does an AoE ally protection, counterattack, and unkillable on himself. Now, he's one of the few, if only, maybe only champions in the epic category that does an AoE counterattack on everybody. This is really strong in Demon Lord if you can keep Skull Crusher alive, because having everyone counterattack on their A1 is pretty big, basically because bosses typically do a AoE attack every turn, more or less. I know Demon Lord has that stun, but this is still really good because it's on a cooldown of 3, so that counterattack is almost always going to be around. So I do want to talk about that and decrease the duration of all debuffs on this champion by 1 turn at the start of each of his turns. So I do want to talk about Skull Crusher. So yeah, nice character there as well. That's kind of an honorable mention here in the Ogren tribes. As far as the Lizardmans go, there's not too many, but I have to bring up, of course, the main one. Probably the most popular of the Lizardman faction is going to be Venomage. So based on the kit, enemies under heal reduction debuffs inflict 15% less damage. So that is nice as well as a debuff, as a passive debuff. We have an AoE that does heal reduction for 3 turns, and then also 2 poison debuffs. This is nice here. We have decreased defense and attack, but it's single target. And then we have a way to activate, basically instantly blowing up those poison debuffs as well. So pretty great champion. I have Venomage and have used Venomage quite frequently as well. And you might see Venomage from time to time in content creator promo links. Second one I want to bring up is Aox the Rememberer. Now, I have not personally built them, but a lot of people in my clan have. And I do want to bring this up because his passive increased the duration of 2 random debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn when Aox gets attacked. So basically every round of a Demon Lord or something like this. We have on the A3, we have an attack, a decrease attack debuff, and also a turn meter reduction, which is helpful in other places, and then a decreased crit rate debuff as well. This is a thing, and then also a little bit of healing, which is kind of nice based on how many debuffs are on the target. And then on the A1, on the A1 over here, we have some poison. So 10% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. It's up to 30% with books, 2-hit attack as well. So I think this part here with increasing the duration of random debuffs is very nice. So those are the characters that I'd want to bring up. There is Broadmaw, of course. So Broadmaw is like very easy in the fusion portal. Basically the only reason why you'd want to bring up Broadmaw is if you literally have nobody to revive your characters if you're having troubles in faction wars. I don't think I ever use Broadmaw, but it's okay. It has a 15% speed buff, not a 30%. There's some turn meter fill, so he's not bad. I'll be honest, he's not bad. Chance to put a freeze debuff, but I would probably only use him in faction crypts, and that's about it. But either way, that's Broadmaw available for you if you need it. Lizardman's also a little bit lacking, I would say. You know what? I actually forgot about Galapo. So okay, so I totally forgot about Galapo because he's a recent epic fusion from one of the past fusions just a couple of months ago. I actually should probably throw him in here. So he does have a revive, which is nice. He's all about healing and just like pure support. I probably should have brought him up actually. A 25% increased resistance on all allies, but all allies heal, a turn meter fill as well, and an AoE A1 with a little bit of healing to himself. Really great for a stun set here in faction crypts if that's what you're needing there. Okay, I remembered. Now we go to Lizardmen, Skinwalkers, my bad. Skinwalkers, there is 2 that I want to bring up. Now, of course, Void, I'm trying to avoid Voids, but Skinwalker has some pretty good ones. And Gom Yellowhand is something that I have built very recently. Also, a previous, I believe, Epic Fusion, I believe, I forget who. Whenever an ally's attacks fill this champion's turn meter by 5% once per attacked ally. So I like this. Also AoE with a stun and turn meter reduction, but also has increased speed buffs. This is really important, I think, to have for each of your factions to make sure you have a speed buff character. Also a 15% continuous heal buff as well. A 2-hit that does leech and heal reduction. So Gom Yellowhand, some great kit there. And then if you don't have him, Hofreeze the Tusk, basically this hippo, is pretty worth it, I would say. Does another revive as well. Revives are pretty important when it comes to faction crypts, getting through some of those boss stages. Also, we have an increased attack and crit rate buff on all allies for 2 turns. So this is a good kind of a lead up to some of your DPS champions for some AoE. And then we have a 2-hitter that has a small percent chance to apply stun. But anyways, it's mostly for the revive. There's also a strengthened buff, actually on this skill as well. Okay, moving on to Orcs. There's one major standout that's always a standout in the Orcs faction, and that's going to be Tagore. So Tagore has this, which kind of mitigates 10% damage if people are under 50% HP. Also have an A2 that does a speed buff. Like I said, speed. And then there's some healing here as well based on their max HP. Also has an AoE revive and shield buff skill, which can be really good for Doom Scarab in Doom Tower or in Cursed City or anything like that. I do still use Tagore from time to time, and also an A1 that hits twice and does a 60% increased defense buff as well to the lowest HP target. As far as others go, I'm gonna give an honorable mention to Seer, but this is more that she's less of a support and more of a damage based character. She is very hard to set up with this. You need to have a specific set of teams for this. But this does a lot of damage, this A3. Basically, she takes all of the buffs from your allies and enemies and it does a big explosion AoE. It hits really hard if you have a lot of buffs to strip from your side and their side, but mainly your side. You want to stack up a lot of buffs and then use the skill, and it does a shit ton of damage. But it's very hard to set up, and I don't know if people are really doing that as much anymore. If you need a bit more of a tanky kind of support character, I would go with Duke the Pierced because he does have Provoke. He's got Unkillable on himself, but also he's got a decreased attack and defense on his A2. So this is really nice on a cooldown of 3. It is 100% with books. I do have him built up, and Duke the Pierced, while he's a defense-based character, I would qualify him as a quote-unquote supporty character as well. So some really good debuffs to use if you have him available. Moving on to the third row. We're halfway there. Oh my god. Demon Spawn. I don't like this as far as epics go. There are not very many good ones, and maybe I just haven't tried them all. But as far as actual support characters go, Dura the Hungerer is one that I have used to get me through faction crypts to get to Lydia. Basically, on normal faction crypts, I wouldn't use him on hard mode. But he does have a 2-character revive and turn meter fill, so that's nice if people die. He's got a reflect damage buff on all allies, and then also a little bit of healing as well. So this is probably the best character that you're going to get as far as that kind of support goes. His A1 has a small chance to land a stun debuff. Oh my god. I wanted to like a Chak, but it's just like I love Freeze. Freeze is a very good controlled debuff, but only if the enemy has a higher attack than their defense. So that's the only problem with that one. Otherwise, he would have been really great if he was just full on Freeze. I can't really recommend many of the other characters as far as from like a support perspective goes. They're more, I would say, they're more of a offensive, right? I mean, maybe you can use Tarshan, but I'm not sure if I really want to recommend this. Maybe increased defense buff for all allies for 2 turns, filled turn meters of 20%. Then we have an AoE weaken, basically, and a provoke. So it's okay, right? But not amazing, not stellar. But I have used Tarshan in the past, just not so much. Yeah, some of these factions are not so great, but the better ones are going to be the newer ones, of course. So Undead Hordes, though, does have some decent options. I want to start with Mausoleum Mage, actually, who is probably the best quote-unquote support, like full-on support. So AoE Cleanse is very important, does healing based on how many debuffs were removed as well, sometimes some turn meter fill. We also have this, which is a very solid buff on a cooldown of 3, so increased crit rate, increased defense, and then also block debuffs, but unfortunately that part's only for 1 turn, and he does have a slow on his A1 as well, a 30%, actually 50% with books to apply a decreased speed debuff. So pretty nice there. I do want to give an honorable mention to Seeker because I use him all the time. And yes, I understand he's tagged to defense, but he does have an increased defense buff when he gets a critical hit. It's on a cooldown of 5, unfortunately, but I have used Seeker in the past for Demon Lord because of the turn meter fill here. 30% turn meter fill and also a increased attack buff on all allies, and he gets a free turn, which allows him to go into his A1. The Provoke is not obviously relevant to Demon Lord, but still a great champion who's actually on my Hydra team, on my C team for Hydra. Has a lot of reviews down there. He's pretty simple, but honestly, he does what he needs to do. Those are the 2 top picks that I would recommend for Undead. Some people might get on at me for not mentioning Vogoth, so I might mention this here. When attacked, places a leech debuff on the attacker for 2 turns, so this part is nice. Obviously, healing through other means. Also, whenever this champion is attacked, heal all allies by 50% of the damage received. Only 25% when fighting bosses, though I have seen Vogoth on a Demon Lord team. AoE with Provoke and Decrease Attack, and also an A1 that's 3 hits. So it could be useful in places like Fire Knight as well. Simple character, literally only has 2 skills and just 2 passives, so but he is useful as well. Okay, moving on to, where are we at? Dark Elves. Dark Elves is, not the best. I'll be honest when it comes to epic support options. I'm going to start with Madame Saris, who is a Void champion, and I don't actually own her, but I have used her before on other accounts. Because she does have an all buff strip skill. This is very useful, and also for setting up AoE damage. We have a 50% decrease attack and a 60% decrease defense debuff on all enemies. We also have a way of stealing buffs as well with an AoE attack here, which does give block debuffs on all allies, but only if a buff is stolen. Also, True Fear as well for enemies. We also have an A1 that does do some fear here too. So depending on how many debuffs they're under. Also, she does start actually, well, every turn, she does get a little bit of a shield for herself. So it's not too bad, actually. So Madame Saris is pretty nice to have if you have her available. Do you want to give an honorary mention to Captain Tamila? Now, I have used her. Ally protection buff on all allies. She's more of a tank, I suppose, but also has the increased defense buff for all allies for 2 turns. Also does healing as well. It's on a cooldown of 3 with books, and then has a chance to place another continuous heal buff on herself if the hit is critical. So yes, I do want to mention Captain. Actually, one of the things that's really funny about Captain Tamila is actually the damage is based on attack, even though she's an HP champion. But hey, I digress. I think these characters are very old. Can't really recommend too many other. Crimson Helm is okay. Defense-based champion as well. Block damage, provoke. But it does have a revive on death, and increased defense buff on all allies as well. Just something I wanted to bring up. And also a chance for a decreased attack debuff, but only for 1 turn. Weird character that's also both attack and defense based. I don't know what's up with these old characters that kind of have a mixture of stat usages. Moving on to Knight's Revenant, that has a bit more clear-cut usages here. Obviously, my favorite is going to be Rector Drath, who is in my promo link, right? One of the best epic support healers, honestly, in the game, next to Tagore, I would say, but also really, really solid. Has a perfect veil, a continuous heal buff on A2, so basically if her heal heals people to full, you get a perfect veil. This would work really well with, say, Ezio, who is available as a free login champion right now for new players. Also has a revive, which gives turn meter and a perfect veil for 3 turns as well. And additional healing and also resistance for characters who are under veil, which is pretty nice too, which is going to come from the A2. And then she does have a decreased attack debuff as well, which is kind of nice here for an A1. As far as other champions beyond that goes, I do want to give a mention to Sanisha, who is not specifically a she's often used in combination with her sister Skullcrown, actually, but she does have an AoE A1 attack, very good to have with a stun set. Also an equalization HP skill. So basically, if you have some characters with high HP and low HP, and it'll basically balance that out a little bit as well. And she does have this vaporize skill, which can be useful in faction crypts because it puts a target's skill on cooldown and does a little bit of healing as well. So Sanisha really good, but better, I think, in combination with her sister here, Skullcrown. Also, I do want to kind of give an honorable mention to Golden Reaper, because she has an increased speed buff, and we need this. Speed, right? And boost turn meter. So that's kind of nice. Also has an AoE attack here with decreased attack, and then also turn meter reduction if they are not under that. If it fails or whatever, I guess, to land that. Also kind of nice. And a 30% chance of decreasing the cooldown of 1. It's not that great. Actually, I don't know why I brought that up. But yeah, anyways, if you need a character that has increased speed and turn meter fill, then Golden Reaper is kind of okay here as well for the Dark Elf. So, no. Knight's Revenant, my bad. And we're down to the last 3 factions. So we have Dark. Oh my god, I don't even know. We're on Dwarves. Okay, this is Dwarves. Runekeeper Dazdirk, again, voids. My apologies. But he does have an AoE debuff cleanse with a pretty big heal, and then more continuous heal buffs for 2 turns on allies that did not have a debuff removed. We also have a 50% increase attack buff, and then turn meter fill there too, and then also a leech debuff for 2 turns. He's defense based, which is really nice for most support characters, so you're going to want either HP or defense to build them. And then I also need to talk about Demetha, probably the best support, very, very good. Places a block damage buff on all allies for 1 turn, and a 15% continuous heal on all allies for 2 turns on a cooldown of 3. We also have the increased duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. This is pretty huge. Decreases duration of all allied debuffs by 1 turn. Not a cleanse, but still really helpful. And then a healing based on their max HP, depending on turns added to or removed from the duration of buffs and debuffs by the skill on a cooldown of 3. Really good for those kind of team setups that are kind of based on increasing the duration of ally buffs. Also, we have a bit of a shield here as well. So Demetha gets a lot of ratings for Demon Lord, Faction Wars, and Iron Twins Fortress. So yeah, really, really nice there for the dwarves factions. Sadly, they are all basically voids, with the exception of Geomancer. I'm just going to talk about him very briefly because while he is attack tagged, to me, he's a support champion. He mitigates damage that all allies receive by 15%, and also basically does damage reflection as long as the enemy has an HP burn from him, which is going to come from his A3, and also does do a complete turn meter loss. Like, it just takes all of their turn meter if they can lose it. HP burn and weaken for 3 turns. Also does an AoE A1 that can decrease accuracy and also can clear buffs with his A2. He happens to get a kill with this in a wave content, then it actually resets the cooldown of the HP burn. Oh, wait, sorry. If the target is killed by this skill well under, it reduces the cooldown of his A3 by 2 turns. There you go. Okay, moving on to Shadowkin. We have 2 factions left. I want to talk about Hotatsu. Yes, I know, another character that's defense tagged, but still really good as far as support stuff. He can kind of self-cleanse himself every 3 turns, which is kind of neat here. And then also has an increased defense buff for 2 turns and a continuous heal buff for 1 turn. This is on a cooldown of 3. And then his A2 does a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns, and then he does a leash debuff on his A1. So a pretty good variety of mechanics here on Hotatsu. And I want to give an honorable mention to Kinagashi only because for epics, she's basically like the only person who can revive in this faction that I'm aware of. Not very good for the rest of her kit, but yeah, there's a team up for 1 person, turn meter fill of all allies, but generally not a very good champion. Just if you really need someone that has a revive for faction crypts and stuff like that, that would be it. As far as other quote unquote support, this they don't have very many characters that are really good that I can honestly recommend. There's just like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of some of these. Some people might level up Tomoi for faction crypts. There is, I guess, 24% speed in faction crypts. There is an AoE decrease attack, which I guess is okay, but I'd rather do like Hotatsu, honestly, if I had the choice. I don't know, just not a real big fan of some of these characters here in the epic category for Shadowkin as far as support goes. Taragi, while not specifically support, is a HP, I would say quote unquote support, who is very, very good. Does place a shield buff on himself, on all allies actually. Also ally protection as well, and then some healing, and then some poison related stuff on his passive. So when attacked, has a 50% chance. Really great champion for Demon Lord, but can also make it through for Faction Crypts content as well because he has AoE Provoke, which of course basically just stops them from doing anything other than A1. So Provoke is very strong for Faction Crypt content. And also has a single target decrease attack debuff. So Taragi the Frog, while not support specifically, is a character I need to bring up. And finally, that brings us to Sylvan Watchers, because obviously Organized don't have enough champions for me to talk about in today's video. I want to start with Cryodan the Blue. He is literally the best support champion of the Sylvan Watchers faction. He has AoE Freeze. Freeze is an amazing debuff. It has a 65% chance when you are using this A2 with books. It's on a cooldown of 3. Also has freeze on his A1, but he also has that great speed up buff that you really need to have, especially on any faction crypts team for 2 turns. Also fills turn meter by 15%. Has a passive that fills this champion's turn meter by 5% for every freeze debuff placed. So when you're using that, you basically want to kind of lead in with this though if you're using him in faction crypts, because you want to get those freezes out on other champions. I think he is also very important for Fire Knight hard mode, honestly, combined with Neldor Rhineblade from the Heil faction. Great freeze champion there. Another kind of honorable mention support-ish champion that I'd like to bring up is White Dryad Nia. I think is really solid for an AoE decreased speed debuff. Now it's only with books a 50% chance. However, it is an AoE A1, which is really nice. Also can reset the cooldowns of by 2 turns of a target's cooldowns, and also cleanses them and heals them. And also we have an ally protection buff and a 15% strengthen, unfortunately, but still really solid on a cooldown of 3. Also, whenever this champion is healed, heals each ally except this champion by 20%. So basically it's like kind of over healing a little bit, that is going to go to other characters if they're specifically healing Naya. So yeah, very cool champion there. And that, I think, after 30 minutes, brings me to the end of my video. I have been talking for a while. I hope that some of the champions that I brought up in today's video you have in your roster, and especially if you're trying to make progress in faction crypts, that some of this helps to kind of narrow down some of the characters that you like to build for your roster. But before we get going, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started playing Raid yet, or you want to make a new alt account, then use the QR code in the top right hand of the screen to get Tholan Falbeard absolutely free at the start of your journey, and Stag Knight, Rector Drath, and Farrakhan the Fat, all who have been mentioned in this video, at accounts level 10, 20, and 30. Don't forget, you can also get yourself the Void Legendary Tahanarek, another amazing support champion, and all you got to do is plug in the promo code Desert Queen within the first 48 hours of a brand new account. That's it for me all, and I will see you all on the next video. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and you'll be greatly helping out the channel. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.